all,
because
of
a,
Man.
all,
because
of
a,
Man.
I,
I
was
manipulated.
bamboozled,
betrayed,
sexually assaulted.
fatherless.
My name is Mateen Guillaume. I'm 34 years old, born in Miami, Florida.
So tell me about the violence. You were going through the violence of your childhood?
Yeah, so I would see a lot of, of course, raising a little Haiti, you see a lot of violence, the gun violence and all type of violences against kids, and it was just hard growing up around little Haiti. And then over time, my mom just said, you know what, she got tired of it and said we had to get out. We finally moved, and we moved to another city called North Miami. It was better, less violence, and it was, I'm sorry.
My name is Tasha Dunn, and I'm 36 years old.
Think about the consequences. Throw me in the dirt. Don't think
I can remember growing up in pretty much we were a middle class family. My mother was a nurse. My father was a mechanic. We did pretty well. We owned, I remember, 2 homes. I had a few cars. But with all of that, growing up was, as far as what I can remember, being young, it was really difficult. I think more not only for me, but for my mother. I was raised in a physically abusive, mentally, emotionally abusive home.
My name is Tiffany, and I am 34 years old.
throw me in the landfill. Don't think about the consequences.
I had a good childhood. I was raised in a household where my mom and dad were married, so that's pretty much all I saw. My dad he was good on his girls. I have 2 younger sisters. So most of my childhood, I've been around older people who were married, like my parents. I was raised in the church, and the pastor was married, so I saw that, that unit of marriage, because that's pretty much all I saw. So.
My name is Natasha, and I'm 34. I grew up with my mom. She had my brother a few years later. We lived in Paterson, New Jersey.
You did say that when you were a child, you longed for a father. Can you explain what happened to your biological father, and if anybody did step in?
Well, what happened to my biological father wasn't around. He lived in the same town, but my mom and him and my mom weren't together. So he had another family and my mom had another family. So my stepdad, I did have a stepdad, and he was always amazing, especially like a provider. He was always an amazing provider. He made sure that we lived comfortable, but he wasn't, it's different when it's not your dad, in the picture. And my dad had his whole other family, and my sister that lived with my dad, she had sickle cell. So his focus was there, with that family. And I feel like not having him around, like knowing who I am, it just played it was hurtful, because you want your dad to be around. And at times he would do the things that, some dads that's not around do. They'll say, I'm coming to pick you up today. And as a kid, you're like a dad, you want that dad, so you're so excited. And when he doesn't show up, it's like such a disappointment. And it's so sad, because every time they tell you, or he says, I'm coming, you believe it every time. And you get let down each time, because it never happens, and then you call and they don't answer. It's just like a big disappointment. So not having him there, I feel like it played a big role in my adult life, because you feel like you want that, but then at the same token, as you go through things in life, you feel like you want that father figure, but then you want to be that person in a relationship that kind of runs and steer things the way you want them to go.
My name is Ingrid Litchmore, and I am 33 years old. I grew up in Jamaica. Jamaica is very beautiful, to most people. Most people don't know the other side of Jamaica. The side where there's dirt roads, a lot of bushes, poverty, a lot of homelessness. So I grew up in Jamaica. Life as a child to me was fun and interesting. I didn't know what lack of things were until I moved to the States. I had one pair of shoes for school, but it didn't bother me. I was happy as a child. Like, it didn't bother me because that's what I was used to. That's what I knew. So, I used to see my other friends outside without shoes, so that's what we knew. We were in uniform to school, we had food to eat, and we had a happy childhood where we played outside a lot. But I think at the age of 8, my mom moved to the state to give us a better life. I think at that point, I became kind of lost somewhat, because I was, in 2 different households with my grandmother and then with my brother and my older sister. So in that phase, I really didn't have a mother for like 4 years. So fast forward, I moved to the United States at the age of 12. That's, if you know, that's middle school. So not only am I entering middle school, but I'm also entering a new country.
It was just hard because I had to be the backbone for all my siblings, because nobody was really around. No, my dad wasn't really around, and there wasn't really no guy around the house. So I was mostly the guy in the family. So I had to take care of all of them, take care of all the siblings. But for the most part, I tried to do the best that I could do with my sisters and brothers. I made sure that they went to school. I made sure that I bathed and clothed them, and that I was able to take care of them to go to school, while I would worry about myself last. I always put myself last. My mother's a single parent. She would work. She was working. She was doing a hotel job at the time, working really hard. So I was the one that had to kind of help her out and stuff like that. So I started working at the age of like 14. Between 14 and 15, I started working in Opalaka Highway Flea Market. So I would work hard to provide and help out the best that I can for the family. I was working for this French lady, and she would always tell me, Black woman, you have to work hard for what you want. And she would leave me in charge to open and close her store. And at the time I'm 14, I didn't know what responsibility was. I just knew that, okay, you just live life and everything should be okay by the time, when you're in your near 20s or, 30s. So she would make me open up and close the store, and she would give me the responsibility to do so. So I said, you know what? I didn't mind, and that was something that I just thought, I was like, you know what? I thought that was pretty cool. Like, I found somebody that kind of like took me under her wing and said, you know what? It's okay. You're gonna be fine. So I remember providing, and I was just providing for my family at the time, working hard. And at the age of 15, 16, the lady that I was working for, I don't remember her name. It's been a long time. She left. She was actually a human resource director, I guess, for here on the Norwegian Cruise Line. And she left, and she told me that she no longer, would be able to run the shop, and I wasn't able to run it. And I didn't find that motherly figure to kind of tell me, which my mom was around, but she was always busy. But she was more so like a mom to me, because she would tell me to open up, close the store. So she left, and I was stuck having to kind of like find my way out of it and find another way, another avenue. So I was working for another lady around the corner in Opalaka, and I was selling T-shirts. And I would sell 4 for $10 T-shirts. And I started meeting people, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm a people person. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna continue to see how I can be engaged with people. And I always loved clothes. So I would get myself ready every Saturday morning just to go to this 2-day job that literally paid me $20 to $30 a day. And just going through that made me realize that you work for what you want, you know? So worked, and at the age of 15, I want to say 16, 17, I started kind of like trying to find my way of what I wanted to do. Went to school. I was always in trouble in school. Had really bad grades. I was getting kicked out of school for fighting.
My sisters, basically, I believe, with them being raised with my father, they were able to, you know, see the things that, you know, what a man should do, what a man shouldn't do. I also believe that going through some of the abuse that they went through as well, also kept them from also wanting to be with a man. Of course, for me, on the other hand, that changed as, you know, as I grew up. I didn't have that opportunity. I also think that it was a little different for me, because I think because I saw so much at that age, I actually carried it in a different manner. I carried it in a lot of rage.
So I honestly didn't start dating until I was like in my early 20s. It was fun. It wasn't serious, but it was fun. I was just dating people. So by the time I hit my late 20s, like maybe 27, 28, I wanted to meet somebody to like get serious. So I went on the dating website, and he contacted me. So no, he was different because normally people just wanted to message me, but he wanted to call me. So he called me like on the first day that he contacted me, and we pretty much talked on the phone, and we talked about what we were looking for, what we wanted, and it was pretty much the same thing: marriage, kids, what we wanted to do, like career-wise and everything. So I was like, okay, cool. This is somebody that wants the same thing I do. I never thought, okay, he may be the one, but I was like, okay, let's just see, you know, how it goes. So the first 2 weeks, everything was good. We saw each other randomly. We did things together, you know, watched movies, the normal, like to get to know each other. And then after that, he disappeared. No phone call, no text. And I'm just pretty much like, what's going on? But then it's like, also, I've seen this before. I've been through this before. So thinking to myself, I'm thinking, okay, Tiffany, here you go again. Another one. So I recall, I didn't like blow up his phone because I was trying to give him some space, but it was more like I left a message, I'm leaving text messages. And finally, he contacted me like maybe a week later, like nothing was wrong. So I was like, well, what happened? Like, where you been? And his excuse was, at the time, he had 2 phones. He's a barber, so he had one for business and one for personal. Of course, I had the one that was personal. But of course, like when I did call his phone, the phone rang. But he told me that he had cut the phone off and he wasn't using it anymore. And I'm just like, why couldn't you contact me on the other phone? It was just excuses, pretty much. So like during that time and then after that, it was so many red flags, so many red flags.
When I was around 8, 9, you know, I had some cousins that, you know, would do the molestation, would let me do things to them sexually when I was, you know, a child. And you know that it's wrong, but when they basically they manipulate you into believing that, or they're going to do something to you, they're going to harm you. If you tell somebody I'm going to kill you, or if you tell somebody I'm going to, beat you up, and you're a kid, you don't know, you know it's wrong, but you don't know that that person won't do that to you, and then especially when they're always mean to you, it's like you feel like that's something they're capable of doing. They probably will kill me if I say something, but now that when you get older, like if you would have said something, something could have gotten done. But throughout my childhood years, they were molesting me and making me do things to them that I wasn't comfortable with. But you don't even know that you should, talk about it or tell somebody, because you feel troubled and you feel scared and you feel like they're not going to believe me. If I tell my mom, she's not going to believe me, and then they might lie and say, oh, she's lying and she did this, and then change the narrative of the story where you're the one now is being attacked because you're lying, or you're making something up. So yeah, I did go through that for a few years, which was very damaging, I think, even for me now, because going through that has put me in a position in my life where I can't trust. Like being in a relationship, it's hard for me to trust people like the guy, because the first sign of betrayal was people that, your family, the people that you think is gonna love you and, take care of you and cause no harm. So as I grew up, like just even like my first relationships, there was nothing that was done to me for me to feel like I can't trust you, but because, well, them per se, but because I went through things with people that was supposed to be my family, that's supposed to, protect me, it was hard for me to trust people I didn't know. Men that I didn't know is like, oh, I don't trust anything they say. It's like, you're lying, and it's always, so that kind of, I guess, at that time in my life, that's where that trust factor was kind of like gone, because it's like, who can I trust? If my own family is going to betray me and allow me to do things that's wrong, why wouldn't a stranger off the street do the same thing? So that, I think, molded who I was at that moment when those things were happening. It just tore that word trust out for me, because from there it was like, I can't trust anyone.
When I moved here, after I finished middle school, I went on to high school, and I told my mom at this point, Mom, I want to go to college. I started college in Miami at Broward Community College. I think I went there for maybe like a year, and I was transitioning between going to the Navy or, finishing college. But my mom never wanted me to move away. But I wanted to move away because I think moving away would give you freedom. If you know anything about living with island parents, they have rules and regulation. Like, it's my way or the highway. So I figured if I move out, I would have freedom. So I was like, Mom, either I go to the Navy or I move to college. She was like, fine, you can move away to college. So at 17, she signed the paper for me to move out and go to college because I graduated from high school early. So college, I moved here for college. I moved to Orlando for college. I went to Valencia Community College. I went there for 2.5 years. While I was there, I also worked there in the Student Success Lab, where you teach people how to become successful. You teach them, tools to help them achieve their goals, or tools to help decide what career field they want to go into. So one day at the Student Success Lab, it was right before Valentine's Day. I remember a few weeks before, I had a car accident, so I was limping, and I think I had crutches. And I was walking to my car, and this gentleman who became my ex-husband said, hey, do you want some help? I was like, sure, and he helped me to the car. So that's how we first interacted. And then after he helped me with the car, I didn't give him my number or anything at that point. I was like, oh, this is a nice guy, I've seen him once or twice around campus, but I never spoke, really spoke to him. So fast forward maybe a few months later, Right before Valentine's Day, he came into the Student Success Lab. A lot of people come in there because that's how you file for financial aid, that's how you file for student loans, that's some people do their homework or surf the internet. Because back then, computers were everywhere, but you have limited access to internet. So he came in and I think I helped him with something, and he was like, hey, we should go out, here, here's my number. And I was like, sure. So it was like the day before Valentine's Day or something like that. He didn't call the first day. The second day he texted me, he was like, hey, how are you doing? And so forth. And then I believe a week later, we went on a date to Olive Garden. It was very interesting because we had some of the same backgrounds where, his parents moved to America to give him a better life and left him with his grandparents, who raised him for a period of time until he came here as well. So we had a lot of things in common, like being raised by our grandparents, being from the islands, being raised in strict households and stuff like that. So we met, as I said, at Valencia, and that proceeded. We went on several dates, we hung out, we did a lot of things together. I remember him not having a job for a while, and I used to try to help him, and I was like, wow, I'm really starting to like this guy a lot, because here I am, if his car ran out of gas, I'll be the one he called, and I'll bring him gas and stuff like that. So I was like, wow, I really like this guy, and he's very intellectual, like the way he talks and, the way he presents things. He has he had a good shoulder on his head. So like, wow, he's going somewhere. So that was very attractive to me in the way he carried himself.
I named my title 13 because at around 12, I was molested by my stepfather. And that situation, I don't know, because I'm a beach girl, living in Miami. If you're not a beach girl, then you're not it. And my friend was coming to pick me up at my house. It was like midday, maybe around 12, I'm not sure. And she was like, Mateen, get ready. That was a phone call I got from her. So I said, okay, no problem. So at the time I had a Florida shirt on. It's the dopest shirt you had to have living in Miami. It had like flamingos on it and it said Florida. So I was like, okay, should I take a shower or should I not? Because I'm going to the beach anyways. So I went ahead and my stepfather was like, oh, who goes to the beach and don't take a shower? Who goes out and don't take a shower? So I was like, well, he makes sense because he's an older man and he's the guy in the house at the time. So I was like, okay, no problem. So went ahead and took a shower, and we had these little key locks. I don't know if you remember they was like long, like kind of like a little round circle, and it was long with a little hook in the front, and you would put it in like a little knob to open up a door. But you can see people walking through the little hole. So I was like, okay, no problem. I didn't care to know who it was. And I mean, not that I didn't care who it was. I knew that my stepfather was in the house, and I knew that my baby sister was asleep at the time. So I took a shower and I got out, and my stepfather was like, oh, where are you going? So I was like, well, he knew that I was going to the beach, but he was like, oh, you don't leave the house without letting older people know. It's a Haitian thing. You let people know where you're going. Okay, fine. I already let you know what I was doing. So he told me he wanted me to come to the room. So I'm like, okay, for what? So he was like, he asked me, sorry, try not to cry. He asked me if I was hot. And I said, it didn't matter because I had an attitude already, and because I couldn't go with my friend. And he said, I said, how? I was like, yes, it's a little hot in here. So next thing I know, he was like coming towards me, and he basically was like, you would have to console with me first before you go. I was like, okay, no problem. But it kind of the moment was different because I'm like, there's something I had never experienced before. So I was like, okay, this doesn't seem right. So I don't remember anything. I just remember blacking out. And I remember my friend, I don't know, because at the time that I was blacked out, all I remember was I kind of like woke up, and then my friend was like, Mateen, ambulance. I just remember ambulance and remember just heading heading to the hospital.
I think growing up, watching my dad going through the whole physical, mental abuse. I remember one time being young, my mom tried to pack up and run away. And my dad, I guess, caught her going through the door or whatever, and she felt it was a little too risky. So basically, they got into a heated argument, and I remember her, he left out and she left out behind him, and I guess an altercation happened because when she came home, she was bloody. She had been beaten by not only my dad, but my dad's, I guess, other girlfriend at the time. And so I remember seeing that, and I remember thinking, this has to be because of my father. So growing up, I always felt that, you know what, any man, whether it talk to me in such a manner or to place their hands on me in any kind of way, I was ready to fight back, not for myself, but for what my mom couldn't do at the time. So I did carry a lot of rage. I was more so the girl that dated men, not necessarily was the one that dated a woman, you know, in an abusive, dated a man, in an abusive relationship and would just constantly be abused. I would be the woman that actually would pick the fights. I would be the one to start, you know, finish the fight, start the fights. It just was that rage in me. I had a hate for men.
There was one day, he has a son. We went to Walt Disney World and we had a good day. It wasn't like romantic or anything, but it was a good day with a good friend and his son. So we had dropped his son off and he was random at times. So out of the blue, he's driving, I'm in the passenger seat. He puts his hand on my thigh and he goes, "I hope you're not telling your friends that I'm your boyfriend." And I'm like, why would you say that? And why is your hand on my thigh? So to me, that was like, it was opposite. It was like you're being affectionate, but then you're acting like something's wrong with me being like us being in a relationship. So I asked him, I was like, what's wrong with, well, I'm not, but like, what's wrong with that? Like, what make you think that I would be saying that? And I honestly can't remember what he said because it didn't make sense. But it was kind of awkward for me because it was mixed signals. There was a lot of mixed signals with him. Like when we first talked on the phone, we were talking about what we wanted, which was marriage. His actions didn't match up with that. So at one point, I want to say it was like maybe 4 months later, he wasn't pursuing, he wasn't doing anything. Like nothing, nothing was being done. So I asked him one day, I was like, so what's going on with us? And I felt funny because me being a woman, I shouldn't have to go to you and ask you what's going on with us. And he was going through something at the time, so he kind of like shut down. But I need you to at least communicate with me. So he was talking about what he was going through, and then I heard him say, I'm not even ready for a relationship. And the first thing that I thought, I didn't say it out loud, but I thought it, I was like, well, that's not, so did you lie some months ago when we were talking? Or did you just change your mind? And like, when were you gonna tell me? Because I'm obviously looking for something serious. So after he said that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna back off. So when we got off the phone, I deleted his number, but then he came back and acted like he wanted to be something serious. But then he went back to being distant again. It was a whole lot of back and forth. Friends 1 minute, and then bae and wanted to, be intimate with me the next. So it was a lot of back and forth.
I met my daughter's dad not in college, but it was in my college years. So he actually came to my church. My eldest daughter's dad came to church, and we met there. And we started dating, and it was just like the basic fairy tale relationship. We were young, we were having fun. It was like the times of our lives. We were doing, just living. And it was great, in the beginning. But as we started to progress, I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter when I was, I think, would say 19. And at that time, when I got pregnant, my family is like, oh, you're not gonna have a baby, out of wedlock. So if, I think you guys should just go ahead and get married since you guys been dating. And of course, at that time, we thought, well, I know personally me, like, who doesn't want to get married? Like, I'm gonna be a married woman. So I was for it because I felt like this is what we should do. We already have a child on the way and we've been together for years. But I think that was not the best thing to do. We were still so young. We were not ready for what marriage was. We didn't even understand what that commitment was. So us getting married, I feel like for both of us was a learning curve. It was a lot of betrayal, but I feel like most of that was because we weren't ready. So we dated. We got our first studio apartment in Paterson, New Jersey, and it was great. We were living the life. We had good friends and supportive family, and we had our daughter. But I think the pressure of being young and having friends that are single and friends that, just is doing whatever, he fell into that trap, and started doing what other people, just living his life. And in the midst of all of that, I remember one day he came into the room and he said, Tasha, did you change the soap that you use to wash your clothes? And I'm like, no, why, what's up? Oh, no, he's like, oh, nothing, I'm just asking. So I'm assuming something wasn't right. So he went to the doctor, but he never told me anything at the time. I guess he wanted to see, what was going on. So he went to the doctor, and the doctor told him, oh, you have gonorrhea. And then the doctor was like, well, if you have a wife, girlfriend, whatever the case may be, you have to let them know. So, just imagine your husband coming home to tell you that, you have gonorrhea, or I have gonorrhea, so you have to get checked. And knowing that I'm married and I'm going to the doctor to, let them know that it felt so like just the worst feeling in the world, and it was just a devastating situation and a devastating experience. But, at that point, I knew for sure that he had other things that was going on. But, because you have a family, we already got married, we already have a child, we tried to work through those dilemmas. But as the time progressed, it just continued to get worse. It just spiraled out of control. He continued to do what he wanted to do. At some point we did try to patch things up, and my mom allowed us to move and she has a 3-family house in Jersey, and she allowed us to move in to the house, first floor apartment. And at that time we said, all right, we're gonna start over. We're gonna start fresh, and we're just gonna, just have our family. But, obviously that wasn't the case. Just like I said, he wasn't ready. Maybe I wasn't ready. So he continued, but I just knew like something wasn't right. But he had such a good friend support system that whatever he had going on, I would not know, because he's always with those friends. And whatever they did it together. And no one would have come to me and say, okay, Tasha, this is what's going on. But internally, I had a feeling that, something wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. So we had a friend that was through me. We've been friends for years prior to him meeting, my daughter's dad. So one day I pulled him to the side. I said, listen, I know it's like a bro code and everything, but I had a dream about something and I have a feeling in my heart that something isn't right. But, if I'm badgering him every day and have no facts, it's kind of like you look like that broken, nagging, woman that they portray you to be. They portray you as this, but they know that they're doing something to you. They know that they're doing something for you to feel that way. But it's just so funny how men want to portray women as being broken or damaged or, whatever other words they have out there. But they know that you're doing this. Like you're doing this. This is why I'm broken. This is why I'm upset. This is why I'm nagging. I'm doing these things because you know that you're doing something to hurt me. But of course, there's no evidence. So because there's no evidence or nothing for you to back it up, you just look like a nagging bitch. Excuse my language. But, it's just kind of like, oh, you're just nagging or you're just doing this because you want to do it. Needless to say, this person cared about me a lot, and from what I could understand, wanted to come to me. But again, the whole bro code thing. So I asked him. I said, "Listen, I won't never say nothing. Just let me know, like, it's what's going on." And he came and he said to me, Tasha, he is, been seeing someone else.
So, we dated for maybe like a year and a half, or almost 2 years actually. Then I became pregnant with our first daughter. After that, we moved in together, and, he's like, I want us to be a family. You're carrying my child. He was very loving, very caring, very helpful. We lived together, and then we started building something together. After I had our daughter, I didn't work for like maybe 6 months. He worked, he carried the torch, he did his part. Then, we bought a house, we bought a car, I went back to work, the good stuff, the family life, the things that you want to achieve as a woman, supposedly, by society means. So after we have our first daughter, and, like 6 months later, my mom died. So I was kind of devastated by that, and, my mom was the only child. So I remember talking to my grandmother, and she was like, this is why I tell you, you should have more than one children, because if you have one and he or she dies, you don't have any more. So I was like, okay, you're right, I'll have another one. So then I had my second daughter, like 2 years, and I want to say 2 years and 4 days later, I had my second daughter. At this point, we had moved into our house, and we were established and doing big things basically at this point. But if you know anything about life happens, right? So after we bought our house, I don't know if you guys remember when the market crashed, when they were giving loans to people who didn't deserve it, or giving loans that would, balloon 2 or 3 years later where you can't afford it. We were one of those victims, yeah. So we bought a house, and the loan wasn't right for us, That's why I always tell people, before you invest in something, do the research. Find out what kind of loan it is, find out how it's gonna benefit you or not benefit you in the future. So we ended up just leaving the condo and just moving to an apartment at this phase because, I had a second child, the mortgage was going to increase, and you have to decide, am I going to work more hours and not spend those hours with my children for a mortgage, which eventually, I probably can't afford. So we just walked away from that. And, I was upset at first about it because first I was worried about my credit. And not only that, we put a lot of work into the house. And, at first it was a house, but I turned it into a home. So this is the house my children learn how to walk, crawl, all that good stuff. So it was, interesting walking away from it. It really was hard for me at first, but for him, he was like, well, it's just a house, it's either we live here and we can't afford anything else, or we move. So we moved, and we moved to an apartment. For that part of our life, we had a good life because the rent was cheap. Apartments is cheap. Our rent was like maybe $800, and back then our mortgage was like maybe $12. So you have a $400 difference, and if two people are working, you have two income, so that's double money. And yes, we were paying a lot of money for childcare, but we still had income, because we had 2 children in daycare as well. So after that, we decided to just stay at the apartment and just, work on each other and work on our life. And at one point he decided that, I just want to write a book. I don't want to work anymore for now. I just want to go ahead and write a book. And I was like, okay, fine, because I was working at Sprint, and Sprint had great commission and great, hourly wages and benefits. I was like, sure, because my second daughter went to daycare at 2 months, so she didn't have that experience where, your parents are at home with you. So I was like, okay, that's fine, you at least, he'll be there with her, and they'll have that connection, that bond. But if you know anything about staying at home all day, it drives you crazy, especially with children. I can't stay home all day. I bless those people, yes. So, he stayed home, and when he come home, I would take over. He will literally leave, because he's like, oh my God, what a day. These kids are driving me crazy. And he'll leave, and then he'll come back, and I'll make dinner. I'll still do my part, even though I'm going to work, because, in the islands, you're trained to cook, clean, sew, everything. They train you as a woman. Basically, it's in school in the islands, you have a sewing class. They give you those things in the islands, because those are tools that you have to learn to take care of yourself. So, I'll do my part still. He'll do the laundry. I'll still cook, clean, do the kids' hair and all that stuff. But, life happened again. And, I realized I saw something in him. I was like, maybe you should get a part-time job, because you don't seem happy. You don't seem, it seems like something's bothering you. So he started working like on Saturdays and Sundays. He still stayed home during the week with the kids, and he worked part-time on Saturday and Sundays. And that lasted for maybe, I want to say almost a year or so. And then, he just stopped, he didn't work anymore. He stayed home with the kids completely.
I'm gonna find out I was molested and raped by my stepfather. And trying to take it in, and they did so many things to, sorry. I just couldn't understand. I just couldn't believe it. Like, why would it happen to me? I heard people go through it. I never understood why it was me. And I didn't think somebody that was so close to me would ever do something to me like that. Got discharged. My stepfather kind of fled away. Didn't know where he went, and from then I just kind of live life. From then I just said, you know what? I just kind of wanted to just start dating like older men. At the time, it didn't matter to me. I just felt worthless, felt used, didn't feel like anything after that. But I still kept on with my life. Still started working, still providing for my family. At the time, of course, I was still working I ended up going to the flea market to start working at 14. I just said, let me make a life for myself. I struggled and worked, not caring what nobody thought of me.
Through all the dating that I did, I have to say, and just to go back a little bit, dealing with, I actually was married at one point. Of course, not married for love, but more married to the father of my children because of benefits. Going through that relationship, of course, it was really hard on me. So I think I had a time where I just was done trusting anybody or trusting men in general. Again, I had a hatred for men, so I didn't know how to love. I didn't have my father around to really show me love. I've never really experienced it, of course. I met a pastor. I just, out of nowhere, my life was kind of going down spiral. I had a moment where one day I just dropped to my knees, and I just wanted to start acknowledging God. I wanted things to change in my life in more of a positive way. And so I reached out to God, I prayed for someone to come along to show me how to love. Out of nowhere, I met a pastor. Funny how I met him was actually through a site, that Facebook at the time. Not like we tried to meet up, but somehow he ended up in my inbox. He was a friend of a family friend and came across my profile and sent me a message. I responded probably about a month or two later. We got to talking and over the phone, and it just blossomed from there. He really loved me for me with all the trials, tribulations, the faults, the flaws. He knew my entire life inside and out. I let him know everything about me. I came to trust him because the first sentence, I'll never forget it, that he told me about himself is that he was molested at a young age. He was hurt, he was raped. So many things happened to him. And for him to come to me and state that to me, not knowing me and our relationship being so fresh, I learned at that point that I can trust someone, someone of the opposite sex, someone that can now be like a father to me that I never had, somebody like a brother to me that I never had. Things went great for us over the past few months. I flew in and out of from Maryland back and forth to Florida. It was the best thing ever. I got to see the life of what it was like to be a pastor, and also what it possibly would be like to be a first lady. I met church members. I actually even began to join the church even more. And that, I would say, tremendously, my life changed at that point because I realized, well, here it is. It's something that I really want to do. And I really want to be with this person. I see myself being with this person forever. So I decided that I made some changes. I started changing the way I dressed. I started just changing everything in order to, I think, more so not to even please myself, but to please this guy, because I figured this is someone that loved me. And we were going to be together. So, of course, unfortunately, months down the line, after, planning, getting engaged and me moving to Maryland, unfortunately, one day he just called and said that he wouldn't be able to carry on with the relationship. So.
I felt responsible for that situation because I knew better. I saw all the red flags, I saw all the signs, but I still stayed in. I still entertained it. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't think I was thinking, but I am responsible because I let it continue. I still entertained what he was doing, the whole back and forth, because I kept giving the benefit of the doubt and just giving him chance after chance. So I am responsible for letting him think that it was okay to treat me that way. So yeah.
And just to be clear, with your story, did you ended up breaking it up officially with him, or did he just drop you off?
Oh, so it was like a little bit over 2 years of back and forth. So it actually, before, I want to say after maybe about 2 years, I had confronted him about how I was the only one communicating. Like if we were to talk, it's because I reached out, like through text or phone, like he wasn't doing the reaching out. So I had confronted him about it and he just kept giving me excuses, no apology, just excuses. So I got to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm done. So I just stopped communicating with him. During that time, I went on a cruise with my family, and during that time, I felt loved for the first time in a long time. It may sound strange, but I felt like I was around people who loved me, and this person I knew didn't love me, even unconditionally. He didn't love me. So I was like, I don't need to be in that situation no more. So it's funny, like on our way back on the cruise ship back to port, it was our last day at sea, and I had breakfast with my family, and I separated from them and I went to like the bow of the ship just to talk to God. And I just told God, I'm done. These feelings that I have for this person, I need you to get rid of them because they're not doing me any good. So I pretty much was like, I'm not gonna do or say anything else. I'm gonna let God take care of it. So I came back home. I was cordial with him. And then not even a week after I came back, we were supposed to go somewhere. And of course he broke his promise and didn't even communicate with me about going to this event or whatever. So he actually came over to my place to, like, I don't know, break up, even though it wasn't a relationship, but to pretty much say that we're not gonna be talking anymore. And I just pretty much, I knew it was God removing him. So after that, we didn't speak anymore.
When I was going through the breakup, after everything was said and done, I was so devastated. And I handle hurt not so well. Like when I'm hurt or when I'm in a bad place, my life kind of like shuts down. It's like I can't focus on anything outside of that problem. So I would not eat for days or just do nothing for days, just waddling in that depression. So I had a daughter. After we broke up, when I found out everything, he was the provider. I wasn't working. I was going to school and taking care of our daughter. So although that was my mom's house, they're paying mortgage. So she said, Tasha, you know, you can't stay on the first floor, but you can go live in the basement, you know, because there's nowhere else for me to go, you know. And she, you know, my dad helped out a little bit with, you know, because it was living conditions, but not living conditions, you know. So we had to do some fixing up to the basement to let it, you know, be livable. So because he was the provider, when he left, I was just like, you know, devastated in a basement. And you know, just devastated in a basement. And it was so hard for me. I didn't feel like I was being the mother I wanted to be, because I was just so focused on, why did he do this to me? How did this happen? I gotta find out. I need to do, you know, I just so focused on that. And I felt like I wasn't being the parent I should be to my daughter, because I wasn't focusing on her. I was focusing on other things. So one day I just was laying in bed, and I had an aunt that moved to South Carolina a few years prior to, you know, everything going down. And I was laying in bed one day and I said, you know what? I'm just gonna move to South Carolina. The next day I called my aunt. I say, hey, can I come, me and the baby come, you know, this has happened, and, you know, I just wanna start over. I need to focus on her, not this. So she said yes. She allowed my daughter and I to come. I had a cousin, he helped me drive to South Carolina. While we were there, he moved to Fort Lauderdale. So when he moved to Fort Lauderdale, he came to me and he said, Tasha, you know, I want my family back. I want my family back, let's try again. So I said, all right, I'm not gonna rush into it. My birthday's coming up in October. Me and the baby will take the train to Fort Lauderdale. We'll come see you and we'll see how it go. I'll come back and, you know, we'll just go from there. But while we were there, that was, I don't remember the name of the storm, but it was a real bad storm that happened here in Florida. And I wasn't able to travel back as planned because everything was kind of shut down. In the mix of that, we kind of just discussed, like, you know what, we're married, we have a child, we're a family. You move back here, you move here, and we do it.
So, you know, fast forward a few years later, his mom was very sick. You know, his mom was a great person, you know, and she became ill, and it was not the same after that. I remember his mom, coming to visit us in November, and like for Thanksgiving, and by December she died, just like that. When she came to visit us, she was free of cancer, she was healthy, you know, she was beginning to thrive. You know, I love his mom because, you know, she was very welcoming. She just had that soft spirit, that, you know, the kindness spirit, the spirit that welcomes you. And I loved her because of the way she loved my kids. Like, I remember when my daughter was young, she used to always cook all these, you know, laboui, which is like Haitian porridge. and all these things, and feed them. And she'll go out of her way just to get them things, just to show how much she loves them, you know? So when she came, you know, she didn't feel good. At one point she was saying her stomach felt like nauseousness, but I thought it was because of the drive and, you know, the weather and stuff like that. But then she went back home, and I was like, maybe she should go to the doctor. And that's when they found out she had a cancer in her stomach that was big as a fist. And then you know, she died on his birthday. So that kind of did, you know, a lot to him. He was impacted by that. And you know, if you don't deal with things, what happen? It buries you eventually. So, you know, after that, you know, moving fast forward, we bought a condo, you know, and we moved into the condo with the kids, and, you know, life was good. You know, he took some time off work because he was dealing with his mom's death and stuff like that, which is understandable. And, you know, he took time off work and he stayed home, you know, and the kids went to daycare and stuff like that. And my daughter had started, I think, kindergarten at this point. And, you know, he stayed home, and he still was working on a book and working on himself. But, you know, eventually he started looking, he's like, you know, it's time for me to get back to work, you know. But the thing about island people, and we don't believe in counseling, we don't believe in therapy, which is not true, we should. Because if you get help, if you talk about these things, instead of burying them, you can grow from it, you can become better, you can live a happier life. But in the island, you know, we don't have therapy. We don't have free healthcare. Healthcare is, you know, hard to get out there. Like if you go to the doctor, you go into a clinic, you know, and you're waiting for like 2 or 3 or 4 hours before somebody see you. If you go to a hospital out there, you gotta bring your own blanket, your own towels, your own toothpaste, your own toothbrush, everything. Nothing is provided for you. And you sit and you wait for hours until somebody see you. If you need an x-ray done, or for example, or an EKG, they have to transport you from the hospital to someplace else to do the EKG because they don't have that in the hospitals there. It's not as technologized, you know, as over here.
You know, around my 18s, I started working I think I was working between 19, 20. I was working at Baker's. I'm not sure when it was. It was Baker's shoe store. I loved my job. At the time, I was selling shoes. I was still into fashion, always into fashion. I remember going to Miami-Dade. I don't know the ages, time range, but I remember going to Miami-Dade, and I remember a professor told me, he was a computer teacher, if you don't take life serious, nobody's gonna take you serious. Because I kept playing around. I would come to school, I would never finish school, I would play around, and he said, you need to take life serious because you're gonna keep flunking. I was flunking at the time, didn't care. Then I finally moved to Orlando in July 2015. It was July 2015, I'm not sure, wait. 2005. July 2005, I moved to Orlando. I enrolled at Valencia Community College, where I went there, and I said, this is a new place for me. This is a whole nother city. I can start life all over again. I didn't care what nobody had to think about me. I moved literally to Orlando with $20 in my pocket. And I was staying with a friend. And then I transitioned, I was staying over with an aunt. And then lived with her for a couple months until I worked hard enough. I was working at Bell's Outlet, a supervisor, night supervisor. I was, at the time, a night supervisor, and then I didn't care like when nobody had to think, but I knew that my whole goal was to leave, to be able to take care of my mom, have something left over to say, you know what, I want to be able to take care of my mom and say, Mom, I did it. So, started dating at the time, and then I met this guy, and I thought that everything was okay. I was working at Saks Fifth Avenue. That's when I was working 2 jobs. I was working at Saks Fifth, always into fashion still, never let that go. And dating this guy, and he told me that everything is gonna be okay, that he was gonna take care of me, that don't worry about nothing, I got you. I trust in him, because I didn't care about any man, and when he came in, I was like, oh, I finally found somebody I really liked. Dated him, cheated, kept cheating on me. I did 5 years with him. And I seen within the 5 years, I said, what was the goal that I came to achieve for? I stopped going to school. I didn't care about anything until I broke up with him.
I was never given a reason. it was I think one of the most hurtful things that I had to deal with, because here it is, my best friend, someone I trusted, someone that took me from basically the dark side to this light, this positive side, and now I couldn't even get a call back. I couldn't even get a response to a message. He just basically dropped me off exactly where he left me is what I felt. I was hurt, and I was just, I didn't, the love that I had carried, and now I just didn't know what to do with it. I never got an explanation. All I was told is that I was, or what I heard is what at the time, that I was not, I wasn't good enough. I don't think they really meant that, but that's what I heard. That's what I took it, that I was not good enough. I was previously married. Here's a pastor he wasn't married. He had no kids. I already had kids. I didn't fit the criteria of a first lady. I think at the time, actually, I think even to this day, he still loves me. But unfortunately, because of the church and because of what he stood for, his career, he couldn't follow through. So I was never really given an explanation. He has reached out to me, actually. He's told me that he still loves me. I will never understand, and I just can't understand right now, and it's okay. I look at it like he's still a friend. I still love him, and I thank him for what he has done for me. But I just, I will never know. I leave it in God's hand that it is, it was just best that way.
I ain't gonna lie, at first I was angry or mad because I wasted a little over 2 years liking this person. To me, that's a long time. Just liking somebody. But not really, because I did learn from it. I learned a lot from that situation. I learned what love is and what it isn't. I learned more about my worth. I always knew my worth, but I needed to apply it, No, to me it was a bridge for me to walk across further into womanhood. So no, I take it as, sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I do get mad at some of the things that I've been through with him, but I was like, no, it was a lesson.
So, moving back to that situation, he started working, and he told me he found a job, and I was like, okay, cool, that's good. He's a store manager at a Sprint store, and I was like, okay, that's good. So it was coming up to Halloween. So Halloween weekend, I went to my sister's baby shower because she was having a little girl. This is her third child, and he was like, I'm going to go hang out with my boys. I'm like, okay, cool. But if you're married, you have rules and regulations, things that you abide by just out of respect for each other. So we had a rule where no one sleeps out. If you're drunk, I'll come pick you up. That's the rule was. He's been drunk before when I was pregnant, and I went and pick him up. That's the rule. If you're drunk, don't drive, I'll pick you up. You can't sleep out, you can't get a hotel, nothing. I'll come and pick you up. That's our rule. So he didn't come home that night. I kept calling him, no answer. He did not come home. So like around 7-something in the morning, he called, he's like, I'm so sorry, babe. I apologize. I'm so sorry, I'm on my way. And remind you, I had to be at work at 7. So I was pissed. I wasn't even thinking anything, I was pissed. And I was like, he came, he really, and I just walked past him and went out the door and went to work. But when I came back from work, he was like, we need to talk, I have something I have to tell you. But then I noticed that kids weren't home. So I was like, okay, what's going on? It was Halloween. I was like, maybe his friends took them trick-or-treating or whatever. So then he was like, I have something to tell you, you might want to sit down. And I was like, what? Just say it. He's like, last night I think I slept with this girl. I don't remember most of what happened. I really don't. And I was like, you had that much to drink? And he was like, yes. And I believed him because I remember instances when he got drunk, he'll pee in a basket. Like, you have to be totally drunk to pee that in a basket. So I believed him, at that point. And he was like, I just don't understand how I could do this to my family. Because he was a great husband, honestly. He was a great husband. Like, you'd come home and there's bubble bath. You come home and just the little things, like the house is clean. You come home, he'll give you a pedicure. Things like that. And he was a great father, like, great father. He'll paint the kids' toenails. He'll do whatever it takes to make them happy. He was a great father, you know. So when he told me that, I was like, wow, you know, I just saw a different person. It's like instantly he became a different person, you know? And I was like, okay. So he's like, I don't know what you want to do. I'm sorry. I don't know how I can do this to my family. I apologize, you know. We can go counseling, we can do whatever you want. Just let me know. And I was like, I just need time, you know. I need time to think. I need time to know what I want to do, you know, because you not only hurt me, you're hurting your children, you know. He's like, and I know that. So, you know, a day or two passed and he was sleeping on the couch and we know we're barely talking. And he's sleeping on the couch and stuff like that. So then, as I mentioned earlier, he started working at this, like it was like I want to say like a Sprint store, but not a corporate store, like a retail store. What do they call? Like a franchise Sprint store. So when he went to work and he comes home late at night, because, you know, when you're a new manager, you have to put in the hours to build your team, to build your store up. So he came home one night and I looked at the phone and I noticed a number called him. And I was like, that's weird. What number is that? So I work for Sprint as well, but I worked in the corporate office and he was on my account. So I went to the Sprint account on my account and I looked his phone number up on their website. Because if you know Sprint, if somebody calls you a day or two or a few minutes ago, you can go on the website and look the number up. So I wrote the number down and I put it on the nightstand. He didn't pay attention to know that the number was there. So I had totally forgot about the number. A day or two passed. So then I called the number and it was like, she said, hi, this is so-and-so, please leave a message. So it was a girl that he slept with. It was her number. So they've been talking. So then I checked my bank account, you know, because if you know, he just got a job. He hasn't been making money yet. So then I checked my bank account and I noticed lunch. You know, to me, one person can't have lunch more than a certain amount of money if we're on a budget and if one person is working, right? So then I put that together and I asked him, I was like, what's going on? Are you talking to her now? And he was like, you know, I just asked her, I just wanted to meet up with her to find out how I can do this to my family, to find out how I can cheat on you, to find out how did I get this far. So I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you are reaching out to the person that know you're married, that sees the ring on your finger to find out how you can sleep with her and you know you have your wife at home. So he's like, none of this makes sense. But then he became distant. You know, he started talking to her more and stuff like that. And like maybe 2 weeks later, he told me he wants to move out, you know, because he's not comfortable living at home anymore. So he wanted to move out. I was like, that makes no sense. I was like, so where are you going to move to? He's like, oh, I'm moving to my friend's house. Let me remind you, this is the same house the cheating happened. So you're moving back where the incident happened. You're moving in there. And, you know, I used to always tell him, if you hang around a cheater, you're going to become a cheater. And he's, you know, one of his main friends was a cheater. And the girl he cheats on me with is his friend's girlfriend, best friend, if that makes sense. So, you know, he moved in there and I just didn't feel something was off. I just was like, okay, so you're moving out for what? He's like, oh, because, you know, now I don't know what I want to do. I was like, really? You don't know what you want to do after you cheated and walk out on our marriage? He's like, yeah, I'm confused, you know. I don't understand how I could do this to my family, you know. And I was like, oh, that makes no sense because you're moving into where the incident happened, right? But he moved out and, you know, he used to come every morning because I had to be at work at 7 to stay with the kids and watch the dog and, you know, walk the dog and stuff like that and bring them to school and daycare. And then he used to come at night to say good night. So one morning he came. If you know anything about women, we can unlock anything. He came one morning, right? And I thought he left his phone when he went outside to walk the dog. So I lift the phone up like this and I figure out the pattern for his phone. So I unlocked it and I saw all the message of her saying, I love you, baby. And they're communicating back and forth. So now they're in a relationship maybe 3 weeks later. And how I know they were also in a relationship, he came to pick up the kids one weekend and my daughter, this is my 3-year-old daughter, I think she was maybe 3 or 4 at that point, she came back and she said, Mom, we met this lady who Daddy's talking to and Daddy and her was kissing. This is your 5-year-old and 3-year-old daughter who have no idea what's going on. The only woman they saw you with is their mom. So I said to him, I was like, what are you doing? Like, you know, I said, so you decide to be with her now? So you guys are in a relationship now? He's like, I just don't understand. I really like her, you know? And I remember us going to a therapy session, and the therapist was like, telling him, you're going at the speed of light and you're gonna crash. He's like, you're walking out on your wife and 2 children for a woman you just met because you find her intriguing, the conversation is new, this is new for you. You know, the therapist told him all these things, and he was like, well, it's interesting to me for me to be able to walk out on my wife with a woman that I barely know, but I have to see where this is going. He literally told the therapist that in front of me. So I'm not gonna lie to you, I did feel ashamed and embarrassed because this is my husband of, 4 years basically. We know each other for like 6 years at that point. This is my husband for 4 years. I felt embarrassed, and she was putting pictures of them on social media together and tagging him. You know how women get petty and nasty. And just things like that were happening. And I said to him, I was like, you don't see how this could disrespect me or make me feel some kind of way? He's like, you're okay, you'll get over it. So, things just started spiraling out of control at that point, like once he moved out, we agreed that, we had got an attorney at this point. We agreed that, he'll have the kids on the weekend or certain days, but I was gonna stay at the condo with the kids and he was gonna pay for their childcare. But I don't know what happened. Remember, this is all happening in the month of November, right after Halloween. So December came around. And, it was his birthday, and I know there's pictures on social media of them together. They're partying, they're living it up, And I felt bad for him at one point. He was like, I have no money, and I'm living with this guy, and I have no money to pay him. So I was like, here's $500, you can go ahead and use this, because we did have one joint account, and here it is. I'm not gonna be petty like you are. So then, fast forward, like around Christmas came, and he came over, and I don't know what was wrong with him. He was like, I'm losing everything. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You chose this path. This is what you wanted. This is what you wanted. And he took the Christmas tree and he threw it on the other side of the room in front of our daughters, in front of my youngest daughter. And at that point, I think I called the police because I was like, you know what? You need to leave because you're getting angry over the decision that you've made, right? So after that happened, he left and I was like, okay, I spoke to the kids, I explained to them what's going on, and he left. So he stopped coming to the house, because she was uncomfortable with him coming. Because I noticed at one point whenever he came, his phone had to be on. And I'm like, she's uncomfortable with you coming here? He's like, yeah, she's jealous. She doesn't want me to be around you. And I'm like, okay, does she know that we're done? This is not even 2 months later. This is still in the first 6 weeks. And he was like, yeah, she's not comfortable with me coming here, I was like, well, she knows that you're coming to see your children, right? And he's like, yeah, but she's not comfortable still. I was like, okay. I guess the way you start a relationship has a lot to do with what goes on in your mind. So after that, it was about to be New Year's, and he called me. He was like, I want to talk to you. We should go in front of the pastor and speak on, what's going on and our family and stuff like that. So, we went to this Seventh-day Adventist church on a Saturday. So he showed up at the church with the girl's daughter. You want to talk about family and stuff, but you showed up with her daughter. So he came, and even the pastors was like, okay, you are coming to talk about your family, but you're bringing your girlfriend's daughter. What's going on? So when the pastors came in and we were talking, the pastor was like, do you hear the things that you're saying? Like, you can't say things and do things in front of your children. They're young. They're not going to understand. But he has a concept that children can understand anything and they can adapt to anything. So we didn't get anywhere with that meeting with the pastors. So we ended up leaving. And when we were leaving, he asked, my daughter was like, Mom, can I go with Dad? I was like, no, not today because we have plans. We're going to meet with your aunts, which is his sisters at Downtown Disney. So he was like, no, if she wants to come with me, she can come. And I was like, no, we have plans already. And plus his state of mind, he was angry, so I really didn't want my child to go with him. So then we kind of playing tag and war with the daughter. And he took her up and put her in the car. I took her out the car, he grabbed me, he threw me on the floor. I got back up, I tried to take her out the car again. He grabbed me, he threw me down on the floor. At this point, he got so upset he called the police and told the police that I wouldn't allow him to take his own child. The police came, and when they came, they saw my jacket ripped off, they say my tights tore up, my clothes dirty, so they arrested him. So once they arrested him, I had to move forward and got a restraining order against him at this point because he wasn't happy. He was not, the police have already came to our house before, from the Christmas incident, so he wasn't happy. So after that incident, me getting the restraining order, if you know anything in the state of Florida, when you get a restraining order, there's visitation rights, and then they have to decide who's going to pay child support and stuff like that. Because the kids live with me, he had to pay child support. And because he wasn't, at this point, he already lost his job because he told the judge that the stress of life caused me to lose my job.
I knew that I wanted to make a difference in women's lives. I wanted to work with women, and I'm a personal stylist, fashion stylist. And I remember working at Saks Fifth Avenue, and it was a lady, older lady. Her husband owned like 5 churches. I don't remember her name. I don't remember none of their names. But I remember she saw me, she said, I need you to stop working here and start your business. She spoke that into me. So I said, are you serious? What do you mean? I said, nobody gonna take me serious. She's like, no, I need you to start your business. I'm dead serious. You are that good. So I don't come here to talk to nobody else but you. I want you to serve me. But that means if I say that I'm an older woman and I'm telling you that starting a business will be the best thing for you. I said, you know what? I thought about it. I broke out a relationship. I took almost 2 years to figure how I was gonna patch that situation because I was in a, when you break up with someone, you try to find different avenues to patch what the feeling, the hurt that you're going through. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna launch my company. Launch my company. It's been the best thing. I get the best clients. They either been through a divorce or they have low self-esteem and they go through things that I didn't think that. I was like, you know what, well, God, like, where did you put me in a position where I'm able to help these people out? And it was a blessing. I started my company not knowing anything. When I launched, I was just so happy. And then I hear people tell me the feedbacks. My clients tell me, hey, Mateen, I love you. I built relationships with them. Because of you, this is where I'm at now. And I said, you know what, God, this is something you placed, this is the journey that you put me through. And I didn't think I was gonna ever be able to get this situation. Like, I didn't ever think out of this journey that this is what is gonna be the results of me being my own business owner and me having my own company. And from this day on, I continues to give back. I give back to women. I did an event back in July of 2000 and back when I first launched. My first launch was towards women that was battered and abused. And I gave every dollar that I had towards that event. I gave it to women that was battered and abused. I went to the Harbor House. I went there. I sat with the women. We did activities where we worked out together with a group of girls that we partnered together. And I said, you know what? I want to make a difference in women's lives. I want to be able to, if a woman call me right now or anybody, you're going through it, I want to be able to help you because I know how it feels for people to abandon you and not answer your calls or not there for you. So from then, I just said, this is it. This is where I want to be. And where I'm going with this, I don't know where God is going to take me, but I have a good feeling that something as good is going to come out of this. And
I have to say, in the beginning, I actually thought, maybe if I would have, if I would have been at the time raised with my dad, I would have known how, what men to pick, and maybe I wouldn't have picked the father of my kids and had these kids early. I looked back and say, maybe I wasn't, I went to church more, or maybe if I wasn't just, I thought of many things. Like, I started to actually question who I was. I really was lost, and I did, in the beginning, I did, but through the great love of God and great friends and church family, they helped me to balance that. At the end of the day, what is for you is for you. So yeah, I don't really look back and ask myself, if there's anything I could have done different. I just believe that if God has something for you, it's for you, and no man or anything can break that. So the fact that it was broken, there was nothing else I could have done to change it.
Not all men are bad men. And I think what happened is a lot of us women don't uplift our men. We don't tell our men, a lot of times we give up. We're like, oh, you're not good enough. You ain't nothing. You this, you that. So this is what's in their mind, that they feel like, okay. And it all starts off when their upbringing. And you'll hear that a lot of times where parents or mothers would tell their child, a guy, especially growing up being a black male, that, you are made to make a difference. You are phenomenal, you are great. But what happened when black men get soaked into saying, oh my God, you're the worst, you're black, you're this, you're that, and we don't uplift our men, we don't pray for our men. So I think, yeah, at times in growing, and I think with this society, the black men do get shut down because nobody who's there to hold them down, or who's there to have their back. And as women, we need to do that because we always shutting men down. And I'm just being honest, there's a lot of guys that could be great, but because they get picked on and looked down on, or not, as they're growing up, mother's not telling them that they're great or they're this and they're that, they feel like, okay, I can walk around just beating on women, or feel like I could just do whatever I want to do to a woman because it's okay. But we're not teaching our men nothing. We're not teaching them anything. So I think we need to get out more and teach our men and uplift our men. As much as we empower women, we need to empower men as well.
Being the fact that you had so much rage before this guy came around, and he pretty much kind of became your best friend and calmed you down, and then he did this to you, do you still have that rage back in your heart?
No, I get that question a lot actually from other friends, family members. They're actually still quite upset at the fact that he walked away and that I'm even able to speak to him to this day, hold a conversation. To be honest with you, he's actually getting married within the next 2 to 3 weeks. He actually proposed to a young lady 4 months after breaking it off with me. And I did confirm that by seeing, internet video. I've tried to talk to him about it. He doesn't want to talk about it, but I have congratulated him. I've never made him feel in any way that I was ever upset. He knows that I'm hurt, but I've never came out and backlash and called him names, or, I let him know that I was hurt, but, here's a person that showed me love that I've never experienced. I don't want to be upset with that person. I don't want to have rage with that person. This person changed me from the dark side and bringing me who I am here today. And I think I looked at it more as the same way that I needed love and he gave me love is the same way that he still needs love as well. And I turned it around actually. I loved him so much, I actually still love him so much, that I'm willing to, to be happy for him. So no, I've never carried any rage. I've actually am excited to hopefully meet someone, and I know how now to be treated, how I can be treated, how to treat someone else. I know I've changed, whereas I used to have this hatred for men. Now I just look at them as all as kings, and I actually, every man that I meet, I let them know that you are a king, regardless of, your financial background, regardless of your status. At the end of the day, you are a king, and hopefully that I can be somebody's queen one day. So
I just have one more question. Who is this?
That person is me.
And if she was sitting here, besides myself, what advice would you give her?
I would tell that girl that although your skin was dark and you weren't comfortable with it, or you were skinny and you felt like you weren't good enough for people because you weren't the body size that everybody else was, that you're a beautiful person inside and out. And, I would tell her that find yourself. It was not finding yourself is something that is the worst thing you could do to yourself. Just going through life and not knowing who you are, like your self-worth, and putting you first instead of everything and everyone else. I would also let her know that you should have finished school because that probably would have took you so much further than trying to start a family at 19. Now, by no means do I regret the decisions that were made, but I think that not taking the time out to find out who you really are, it really took away from who you could have been. Now, I do feel like I'm turned out to be a beautiful person, but if I just took that little time to focus more, if she would have just took that little time to just dig deep and find out who she is, it would have made a whole of a lot of difference in the decisions she made throughout her life.
Looking at that picture, I would tell myself, keep pushing through. Remember what you always say about your mindset. Your mindset is your number one enemy. If your mindset is negative, you're going to be negative. If your mindset is positive, you can overcome anything.
I would tell her, you are enough. If you can't be yourself 100% around anybody, don't even force it. Just be you and put you first. You and God first, has to be first.
That young lady in the picture was, she went through a lot. I'm only speaking life and I'm speaking positive. She was amazing. She's full of joy. She's full of love. She's family oriented. She's been through a lot. She's tough. She's strong. She's phenomenal. She's always smiling.
And if she was sitting right here, what word of encouragement would you tell her?
You got this. You are awesome. You're beautiful. You're special. You're everything. You are made of life. You are gifted.
Each of the women around this table have their own personal stories and are here today as survivors and now also encourage others through those stories. We're here to discuss the African American relationships in the community, why they fail, last, or is there any hope to even be in a relationship? We're going to find out.